Welcome to the channel. I'm Imani Kaliid, author of There Was Violence, and I'll be walking you through something I created for myself that I call the R.E.A.D method. R.E.A.D is an acronym that stands for reflect, engage, accept, and disrupt. So really quick, here's the backstory on how that all came about. So basically the book, which is based on my life, is essentially capturing the most transformative and impactful moments of violence during my childhood. So we're talking about violence inside of our home and violence out in the streets of South Central LA during the 70s and the 80s in particular. Part of my goal in writing the book was to understand what was happening to me in those moments and what my role in them were, if so, and really how to come to terms with all of that. So after a while, I noticed that I had a 4-part pattern of processing all of these moments. So in step 1, I would reflect and basically identify a significant moment I felt needed to be addressed by going back into time and into that place, almost like a little bit of time travel. And then in step 2, I would engage, which is where I would look at the game tape, as they say in the sports world. So I'm basically looking at the beginning of a moment and the end point, and I'm coloring in as much detail as needed. Step 3 is accept. And with this, it's understanding what has happened, and what is done is done. And that is a moment in time we will never get to experience again. And it doesn't really serve us to play revisionist history, and it doesn't serve us to wish that things happened any differently. And finally, in step 4, I would disrupt this moment or event that has been haunting me for years by fully processing the sourness of that moment, by analyzing what occurred. And to drive the point home, I was putting that moment under the microscope and making sense out of what happened. So the reason I chose the word disrupt is because what I found was that once I fully processed what happened in a given situation, I was done with it. And it's almost like a court case. You take your time, you lay out the facts, you look at all the angles, and at the end of the day, you make a verdict. And if I could successfully do that with these moments, I would no longer require to direct my attention towards it. So now to bring this all together for you, I'll apply that method to a moment from the book. But before we do that, I gotta say that I'm not a licensed or trained mental health professional. What I am is a guy who has gone through several rounds of therapy over the years. I'm talking about grief counseling, marriage counseling, individual therapy, through a pretty significant chunk of my life. And I'm quite comfortable with diving into traumatic moments in my past as a result of it, okay? So all right, here we go. So here it is. Step 1, remember, it's reflect. In chapter 6 of the book, Vaughn, the main character who is in the 9th grade at this time, has a close call with a high school kid. And the long and short of it is, while riding a public bus, Vaughn accidentally bumps into this older kid, and the high school kid gets angry, challenges Vaughn to a fight, but in actuality, he intends to shoot Vaughn with a chrome .38 until one of Vaughn's classmates who knew the high school kid talks him out of it. I know, it's trippy. So this actually happened to me in real life, and that was the first time I was aware that someone wanted to seriously hurt me, if not possibly kill me, as a young man. This was a huge welcome to the real world moment that always really bothered me. Okay, moving along. Step 2 is engage. Without spoiling the book for you, I ran through everything in that moment, from the moment I got on the bus. And I'm talking about my attitude, how hard I actually bumped into the guy, what we said to each other, our body language, even what I was wearing, because in LA at that time, and even today, the color of your clothes could be a factor in someone being hostile with you. Crazy, but it's true. So moving on to step number 3, which is accept, or you can say acceptance. Now with this situation, or in the book, at that time in LA, and even now, unfortunately, the game is the game, meaning gun violence is a huge part of street culture. And many people from the hood will tell you that you don't necessarily have to be doing anything wrong to where trouble will actually find you. And sometimes when things like this would happen, I would think, like, why me? I'm a good kid. Because the whole notion of somebody shooting me over an accident was flat out insane and unfair. And the situation stinks. And although I took it very personally, as I think I should have, it could have been any other young man who was just like me or looked like me. And at the end of the day, I fortunately wasn't hurt and I did live. So lastly, we get to step number 4, which is disrupt. And this is the step where, like I said before, we're looking at the game tape and making sense of it all. So with this one, it's a question of how do we put this traumatic moment to bed once and for all? And the path to that is through analysis and understanding. And here was my takeaway. Like, I was noticeably younger than this guy. He may have been pissed because I didn't back down and defer to his age. He may have expected that and was just pissed off by that from me as a younger kid. Number 2, maybe the fact that me bumping into him would in his mind escalate to shooting me means this dude may have had some serious mental health issues. I mean, maybe he was from an abusive home. Maybe he was socialized like that in his own neighborhood. Maybe this guy was traumatized by some older kids, but my best guess is that this couldn't be an individual that came from a home of love and a home where people had a solid set of emotional tools. And the interesting thing about that is that years later, because I hadn't really processed it, I did what us guys sometimes do, and we have revenge fantasies, because in college especially, I got bigger, I got more confident, and I felt like in that moment, he wasn't adequately punished. And with guys like him, I was okay if street justice took care of people like that, which at the time was a very young and immature way of looking at the world, I have to say. But I also understand that the reason I was thinking along these lines is that because I consistently saw rough and tumble guys like him bully, rob, beat, and impose their will on civilians that didn't want that trouble. So, that's the method I use, and I'd say if it's something you decide to try out, go as fast or as slow with it as you need to. Maybe it's something that you're comfortable with right away, or maybe it's something that may take a little time to get accustomed to. And I have to say again, this is only a suggestion. This is not a prescription. There are other alternatives you may try to address the trauma. There's journaling, there's talking with a close friend, seeking counseling from a licensed mental health professional. It just depends. I don't believe in one size fits all. But at any rate, if you do use it, I want to hear about it in the comments section. I hope it works for you. So again, thanks for tuning in. Take care and be well.